There comes a time in history when a people once scattered in silence begin to remember who they are. That remembering is not just emotional, it's ancestral. It's the echo of a long-forgotten rhythm calling them home. Across oceans and continents, from the Americas to Europe, from the islands to the heart of Africa, something powerful is happening, the return. The sons and daughters of Africa's diaspora are finding their way back not by accident, but by awakening. It is as if the spirit of the land itself has begun to whisper again, calling its children by name, telling them, "You were never lost, only searching for where you belong." And as they walk upon the soil of the Igbo and Yoruba homeland, they do not arrive as strangers, they arrive as the continuation of a story that never ended. For centuries, Africa's story was told through the eyes of others, distorted by those who feared its greatness. The transatlantic slave trade scattered millions, tearing families apart, separating languages, and severing the physical link between a people and their homeland. Yet what could never be taken was memory, the memory that lives in blood, in rhythm, in the way one moves, speaks, and dreams. That memory has endured through generations, waiting for a moment like this. The power of return is not only geographical, it is spiritual, cultural, and psychological. It's about reclaiming identity and rewriting the narrative that once portrayed Africa as lost, when in truth it was the world that lost touch with Africa. When diasporan blacks land in Lagos, Enugu, or Abuja for the first time, something unexplainable happens. Their eyes widen, their hearts race, and they feel something deep and ancient awaken inside them. The air feels familiar. The smiles of the people feel like home. The rhythm of the drums, the scent of the earth after rain, and the echo of Yoruba greetings or Igbo proverbs sound like languages their souls already know. That moment when recognition replaces curiosity is the beginning of rebirth. It is not about tourism or curiosity, it's about reconnection. For centuries, the idea of Africa was painted as a place of darkness and despair, but now the children of the diaspora are seeing the truth for themselves. Africa is light. Africa is intelligence. Africa is the beginning. The Yoruba and Igbo peoples stand as two of Africa's most historically profound civilizations. Long before modern nations were drawn, they built societies guided by wisdom, balance, and respect for ancestors. The Yoruba people understood the importance of destiny, how each soul is born with purpose, how community sustains the individual, and how harmony with one's environment defines success. The Igbo, known for their entrepreneurial spirit, believe that greatness is not inherited, but achieved through hard work, integrity, and community values. These philosophies are not just tribal traditions, they are global lessons on how humanity thrives when it honors its roots. And now those same values are reaching the hearts of the diaspora, who are rediscovering them as the key to personal and collective healing. For many returning Africans, the journey back home begins as a curiosity, but it quickly becomes transformation. It is one thing to study your ancestry through DNA results or family stories, but it is another to stand where your ancestors once stood, to walk on the same soil they walked, to hear the same songs they sang, to dance to the same rhythms that once carried them through joy and pain. The return is not just about reclaiming land, it's about reclaiming soul. It's about realizing that Africa was never a place to escape from, it was always the destination. The moment one understands that, a deep pride replaces the pain of disconnect. When diasporan blacks connect with the Igbo and Yoruba, something remarkable happens. Cultures merge, histories intertwine, and new stories are born. The diaspora brings back innovation, education, and global experience, while the homeland offers wisdom, tradition, and belonging. Together they form a bridge between what was lost and what is being rebuilt. In every conversation, in every shared meal, in every dance, there's a healing taking place, a healing of centuries of separation. And that healing is not just for Africans, it is for humanity. Because when Africa remembers itself, The world remembers where civilization began. This return movement is more than symbolic. It's strategic. Across Nigeria, Ghana, and other West African nations, you see diasporan blacks investing in communities, building schools, supporting art, music, and technology. They're not just visiting, they're returning with the determination to create opportunities where once there were none, to bridge the gap between the global black experience and the African continent. They understand now that the future of black empowerment is not in separation, but in unity. Unity between those at home and those who have found their way back. This unity will not just transform Africa, it will transform the world. But returning is not always easy. The road back to identity comes with challenges, cultural differences, bureaucratic hurdles, and emotional overwhelm. Yet every challenge faced is a reminder of the price that was once paid to break that connection. The return is the correction of that injustice. It's the restoration of what was taken and the fulfillment of what was always meant to be. Those who return are pioneers of a new era, carrying the dreams of ancestors who prayed for this very moment. The ancestors who were once torn from their homeland now return through the hearts of their descendants, and as those descendants step foot on African soil, something unseen shifts. The cycle of displacement begins to close. To the diasporan who feels disconnected, uncertain, or out of place in the world, hear this: your roots are not lost. They're waiting for you. They are alive in the proverbs of the elders, in the laughter of the children, in the rhythm of the talking drums, in the power of community that the Yoruba and Igbo have preserved for centuries. Africa does not reject you, it remembers you. It has been waiting patiently with open arms for its children to come home. The power of return is not about going backward, it's about restoring what was fractured. It's about rediscovering the foundation that made you strong in the first place. This movement is the beginning of something that will reshape identity for generations. The young African child in Lagos and the young black child in Atlanta are not different stories. They are the same story written in different languages. And now those languages are beginning to speak to one another again. That connection will create a future where African excellence is not confined by borders, where history is not dictated by outsiders, and where the global black community stands united in purpose. The power of return is not only about going home, it's about going forward. As the diaspora finds its way back to the Igbo and Yoruba homeland, it's not just individuals finding identity, it's a people finding destiny. The world has long divided Africa from her children, but those walls are falling. Every returnee, every handshake, every cultural exchange, every investment, every smile shared between brothers and sisters across the ocean rebuilds what was once torn apart. This is not the end of a journey, it's the beginning of a renaissance. Africa's sons and daughters are finding home, and in doing so they are restoring the world's balance. The power of return lies not in geography, but in the realization that you have always belonged somewhere greater than yourself. It's in the rediscovery of unity, pride, and peace. It's in the moment you stop seeing yourself as disconnected and start seeing yourself as part of something eternal. Africa has always been calling, and now her children are answering. The journey home is not only about the past, it is about the rebirth of the future. And as the world watches, one truth becomes undeniable. No matter how far you've traveled, home will always remember your name. Home is not a place, it's a memory your soul never forgets. It lives in your blood, in your heartbeat, in the rhythm that guides your steps even when you don't know where you're going. For Diasporan blacks, home is not just a location marked on a map, it is an echo that travels through generations, carried in lullabies, prayers, and the quiet strength passed down by ancestors who never stopped believing that one day their children would find their way back. Home is not found, it's remembered. And when that remembrance finally awakens, it calls louder than any distance, any pain, or any history that tried to bury it. When a son or daughter of the diaspora sets foot on African soil for the first time, there is a stillness before the heart recognizes something ancient. It's not recognition by sight, it's recognition by spirit. The trees, the wind, the smell of rain on the red earth, everything feels familiar, as if they've arrived somewhere they've always known. That is because the body may have forgotten, but the soul never did. The ancestors who once walked those lands left behind something deeper than footprints. They left energy, memory, and belonging woven into the soil. And when one returns, that energy rises up to meet them, wrapping them in an embrace that says, "Welcome home." The journey of return is more than a physical voyage. It's an emotional, spiritual, and psychological resurrection. For generations, the children of Africa were taught to see their history through the eyes of those who enslaved and colonized them. They were told to feel shame where pride should have been, to see darkness where there was once brilliance. Yet despite centuries of disconnection, the truth never died, it simply waited. It waited in the rhythm of the drum, in the texture of hair, in the depth of melanin that reflects sunlight like armor. It waited until the day when the scattered children would awaken and remember that they are not broken, not forgotten, not lost. They are pieces of a grand design that began before history was written and continues to unfold today. Home for the Diasporan is rediscovery. It is realizing that Africa was never lost. It was hidden beneath the noise of misinformation and the silence of stolen identity. The Igbo and Yoruba homelands stand as living testaments to civilizations that thrived long before the world knew the meaning of empire. Their art, their music, their languages, their philosophies, these are not remnants of the past but the blueprints of human advancement. To walk through Yoruba land is to walk through the birthplace of balance and destiny, where every name holds meaning and every gesture carries spirit. To stand among the Igbo is to stand among people who have mastered self-determination, community, and entrepreneurship since time immemorial. When Diasporans come home, they don't just reconnect with people, they reconnect with purpose, and yet returning is not just about nostalgia, it's about transformation. The journey back home changes how one sees the world. It replaces disconnection with direction, confusion with clarity, and pain with pride. When a man or woman stands on ancestral soil and feels that pulse under their feet, they realize they were never meant to live in exile. They understand that their existence carries the dreams of those who never made it back, and that by returning they are completing a circle that history tried to break. Every embrace shared, every tear shed, every dance performed in the dust of home is a form of healing that words cannot capture. It is the body remembering its original rhythm, the soul finding its resting place. Generations of displacement created a void that material success could never fill. Many in the diaspora found wealth, education, and opportunity, yet still carried an unexplainable emptiness. That emptiness is not weakness, it is longing. It is the spirit's call for reconnection. When they hear the Yoruba drumbeat or the Igbo flute, something stirs because those sounds speak a language older than words. They speak of resilience, of beauty, of survival. The return is not about rejecting the lands where one was born. It is about understanding the source of one's strength. To return home is to finally stand in truth, to acknowledge that the past does not define you, but it shapes the wisdom that propels you forward. Home also teaches humility. The returning diasporan quickly learns that Africa is not waiting to be saved, it is waiting to be understood. The continent is rich, not just in minerals or culture but in human wisdom that predates colonization and continues to inspire. The Yoruba concept of Iwa Pele teaches gentle character and balance, while the Igbo philosophy of Iwebuike reminds us that strength lies in unity. These ideas are not relics, they are living values that guide life, leadership, and love. To return home is to learn from those who never forgot, to merge modern ambition with ancient understanding. The diaspora brings innovation, education, and technology, while the homeland offers grounding, culture, and community. Together they form a bridge strong enough to carry generations into a new era of consciousness. There is something profoundly healing about standing on the soil where your story began. It dissolves the illusion of separation. It reminds you that every struggle, every migration, every survival was part of a larger purpose, to awaken, to rebuild, to restore. The power of return is the power of recognition, seeing in the faces of your brothers and sisters across the ocean a reflection of yourself. It's the realization that the drumbeat that moves your heart is the same rhythm that once guided your ancestors through harvests, ceremonies, and journeys across the continent. It's understanding that your success abroad is not the end of your story but the preparation for your return home to contribute, to build, and to reconnect the world's broken roots. Home does not demand perfection, it simply asks for presence. It does not judge where you've been, it rejoices that you have come back. And when you walk through a Yoruba marketplace or an Igbo village, you feel that life is not about possession but connection. Every smile, every handshake, every sound of laughter feels like belonging. The return is not the end of the journey, it is the beginning of understanding who you've always been. The heart beats differently in Africa, it beats with recognition. The truth is, home is not something you find outside yourself. It lives in the knowing that you are part of something eternal, something that time could never erase. It's the voice of your ancestors whispering through the wind saying, "You are the continuation of us." The soil may have been far, the oceans wide, but the bond was never broken. The power of return is the moment that bond becomes visible again. And when that happens, the soul finally exhales. Because home in the deepest sense is not geography, it's memory. It's the place where identity meets peace. It's where history and destiny shake hands and promise to begin again. For the Diasporan who has found the courage to return, that first step on African soil is not just a step backward, it's a step toward wholeness. It is the moment the circle closes and the journey of generations finally comes full. Home is not a place, it's who you are. And once you remember that, you are never lost again. The power of return is the power of restoration. Every step taken by those returning to the Igbo and Yoruba homeland is a correction of history, a declaration that the spirit of Africa cannot be erased. The children of the diaspora are not guests. They are the continuation of a story that began before borders, slavery, or separation. Each arrival is not just an act of travel, but a sacred restoration of balance. When a diasporan sets foot in Nigeria, Ghana, or Benin, something ancient awakens. The earth seems to hum beneath their feet, whispering truths that have been waiting for centuries to be heard. The air feels heavier with memory, the trees seem to sway differently, and even the wind carries a rhythm of remembrance. It is as if the land recognizes its lost children and welcomes them home with open arms. This return is more than symbolic, it is spiritual healing in motion. Generations were torn apart, languages forgotten, names replaced, and histories rewritten. Yet through all that was taken, one thing remained untouched: the essence of belonging. The African spirit is resilient, adaptable, and eternal. For centuries it was carried across oceans, hidden in lullabies, woven into the rhythm of music, and whispered through stories told by grandmothers who remembered what the world wanted them to forget. The return, therefore, is not only physical, it is ancestral dialogue. It is a reunion between those who stayed and those who were taken, between the soil and the soul, between memory and modernity. For many in the diaspora, the first encounter with Africa is not through sight but through feeling. There is a deep and unexplainable recognition, a vibration in the soul that says, "I've been here before." When they hear the talking drums of the Yoruba or the melodic intonations of the Igbo tongue, something ancient stirs within. It's the same pulse that once beat through kingdoms like Oyo, Benin, and Nuri. It's a connection that transcends time, reminding the returnees that their roots run deeper than the pain of separation. The power of return lies in this realization that identity is not lost through distance, but merely asleep until it is reawakened by truth. As diasporans walk through bustling markets, listen to native songs, and engage with their ancestral brothers and sisters, they begin to understand that home is not just a place, it's a reflection of self. They see familiar eyes, hear laughter that sounds like their own, and feel a sense of belonging that no foreign land could ever give. It's as if their ancestors left breadcrumbs of memory in the form of culture, music, and spirituality, waiting for the day when their descendants would come searching. The Igbo's belief in community and collective destiny, and the Yoruba's deep understanding of character, wisdom, and balance, provide more than history. They offer a blueprint for rediscovering humanity's shared soul. The power of return also reshapes identity. For too long, diasporan blacks were taught to see Africa through distorted lenses, depicted as a land of struggle rather than strength, chaos instead of creativity, poverty rather than power. But the truth seen with unclouded eyes reveals the opposite. Africa has always been a cradle of civilization, the birthplace of language, mathematics, art, and philosophy. The Yoruba gave the world profound spiritual systems that recognize balance between heaven and earth, while the Igbo contributed wisdom rooted in unity, justice, and equality. To rediscover these truths is to dismantle centuries of falsehoods. The return, therefore, is also an act of reclamation, a taking back of what was always rightfully theirs: dignity, pride, and legacy. The return is not without emotion. Many who come home for the first time weep without knowing why. It is not sadness but release. It's the ancestors speaking through the body saying, "You've made it back. You've closed the circle." Those tears are centuries of grief dissolving into gratitude. They are the sound of chains breaking, not metal chains, but mental ones, forged through years of separation, shame, and misunderstanding. The soil of Africa does not judge, it receives. It welcomes all who come with sincerity, reminding them that blood remembers even when the mind forgets. But this return is not meant to be passive. It calls for purpose. It calls for the diasporan to not only reconnect, but to rebuild, to bring back the knowledge gained abroad, to invest in the lands of their ancestors, to uplift the communities that have preserved culture despite all odds. The return becomes a partnership between continents, a bridge between worlds. The diaspora brings innovation, global experience, and resources, while Africa offers identity, heritage, and spiritual grounding. Together they can forge a new narrative, one of unity, pride, and power. The Igbo and Yoruba lands hold deep lessons for those who seek them. They teach that no matter how far a river flows, it never forgets its source. The Igbo philosophy of Idwebawike, there is strength in unity, reminds every returning soul that collective identity is more powerful than individual achievement. The Yoruba principle of Idwepele, gentle character, shows that greatness begins with humility and integrity. These ancient values, though born in Africa, belong to the world. And as diasporans return, they are not just recovering their personal roots, they are reviving global wisdom that the modern world desperately needs. The power of return challenges the world to rethink history. It reminds humanity that what was once broken can be mended, that time does not erase truth, it only buries it for a while. The act of coming home is not just about reclaiming ancestry, it's about restoring humanity's back. Because when Africa's scattered children return, they bring with them the proof that resilience is stronger than oppression, and that love is stronger than distance. Each reunion, each reconnection, is a healing not just for one family or one nation, but for the world. In every returnee's eyes is the reflection of generations who endured storms, crossed oceans, and dreamed of this day. They walk not just for themselves but for those who never got the chance. They speak languages that their great-grandparents were punished for speaking. They dance to rhythms that were once forbidden. Every smile, every heartbeat on African soil is a victory over time and trauma. The return is not a chapter in history. It is history rewritten by those who refuse to forget. The true power of return lies not in the journey itself but in what it awakens. It awakens pride, purpose, and the realization that Africa was never behind. It was ahead all along, waiting for her children to come home and see her with new eyes. The return is not about changing who you are, it's about remembering who you've always been. The moment you step on that soil, breathe that air, and feel that rhythm, you understand that the home you were searching for was always within you. The world may have tried to erase Africa's sons and daughters from the pages of history, but their names were written in spirit, and spirit cannot be erased. The power of return proves that home is eternal, and when the lost ones find their way back, history smiles again. Unity is the key to the future. When the diaspora joins hands with the people of Africa, they form a bridge strong enough to carry generations forward. It is not merely the unity of faces, names, or nationalities. It is the reunion of souls that once shared the same heartbeat before time scattered them across oceans. Every hand that reaches back to Africa, every African who welcomes that hand creates a living bond that cannot be broken by distance or language. This connection carries power, not the kind measured in wealth or weapons, but in shared purpose and ancestral energy. Together they rebuild not only nations, but identity, pride, and destiny, reminding the world that Africa was and always will be the heartbeat of humanity. The story of Africa's children is one of remarkable endurance. Torn apart by centuries of displacement, enslavement, and division, they still carried the flame of home within them. Even when the world tried to make them forget, the spirit of unity never truly died. It lingered in music, in rhythm, in the sway of hips during dance, and in the instinctive way African descendants smile when they meet another who shares that same unspoken heritage. This unity lives deep in the DNA, calling out through generations, whispering that one day the scattered will return, and when they do, the land will rejoice. It is not just poetic, it is prophetic, written in the cycles of life itself. When the diaspora returns and stands side by side with their African brothers and sisters, something extraordinary happens. They bring with them knowledge, technology, and experience gained from the world beyond. The people of Africa, in turn, offer wisdom, culture, and a spiritual depth that has survived untouched through time. It is an exchange not of charity but of equality. Each gives what the other needs most. The diaspora rediscovers belonging. Africa rediscovers her global strength. This is how nations rise, not through isolation, but through the merging of roots and wings. In this unity, there is power that transcends the limits of politics and economics. The return of diasporan blacks to places like Nigeria, Ghana, and other African homelands is more than symbolic. It is a restoration of balance. For centuries, Africa's greatest tragedy was not just the loss of her people, but the loss of connection between her people. Today, as more return, that connection is being rebuilt brick by brick, conversation by conversation, and heartbeat by heartbeat. It is the rebuilding of a family tree whose branches were cut but never died. Each reunion mends something that history broke, healing wounds that textbooks never mention, but that generations have felt in silence. Unity among Africans and the diaspora is not just about remembering the past, it is about shaping the future. When Africans everywhere begin to work together, trade with one another, and educate one another, they become unstoppable. Imagine a future where black inventors from London collaborate with Yoruba engineers from Lagos, where Haitian artists draw inspiration from Igbo philosophy, where African Americans build schools and tech hubs alongside local entrepreneurs. This is not a dream, it is the unfolding reality of what happens when the scattered realize they were never separated in spirit. The world is watching this movement of return and rediscovery, but few truly understand its depth. It is not just cultural, it is cosmic. The greatest obstacle has always been division. Colonial powers knew that as long as Africa remained divided by borders, by tribes, by language, she would never realize her true strength. They feared unity because unity reveals truth. And that truth is that Africa is not a continent of poverty but a land of potential. Not a place of chaos, but the cradle of human order. When Africans and the diaspora embrace each other as one, they awaken this truth. The global narrative begins to shift. The same world that once looked down on Africa starts to look up to her again, seeing not victims but visionaries, not struggle but strength. The unity of the diaspora and Africa is not uniformity, it is harmony. Each voice, each culture adds its own rhythm to the song. The Igbo say a person is people, meaning that one cannot exist without the community. The Yoruba believe that character and destiny are intertwined with collective responsibility. These ancient truths speak louder today than ever before. They remind every descendant of Africa, whether born in the motherland or across the ocean, that greatness is achieved not alone but together. It is time to replace competition with collaboration, jealousy with joy, and isolation with inclusion. This movement of unity is not only historical, it is deeply personal. Every diasporan who returns carries the hope of their ancestors who dreamed of home but never saw it again. Every handshake between a local African and a returning brother or sister is more than a greeting. It is history making peace with itself. Every shared meal, every laugh, every collaboration becomes a symbol of restoration. It tells the world that Africa is not just surviving, she is uniting, and in her unity lies the blueprint for humanity's future. The power of unity also extends beyond economics or politics, it transforms identity. When the diaspora and Africa see themselves in each other, a powerful self-awareness begins to rise. They no longer view their heritage through the eyes of colonization but through the eyes of truth. The diaspora realizes that their creativity, rhythm, and strength come from a lineage of kings, scholars, and builders. Africans on the continent recognize that their global family carries influence, innovation, and courage born from survival. When this mutual respect blooms, Africa's children everywhere stand taller. They no longer beg for validation, they command recognition. The unity between the diaspora and Africa is the next chapter of the human story. It is where technology meets tradition, where history meets hope, where pain transforms into purpose. The diaspora's return is not a return to the past, but a leap into a shared future. It's about creating new systems, new art, new nations founded not on division, but on understanding. Every collaboration, every conversation, every cultural exchange builds a bridge that future generations will cross. The unity of Black people everywhere will not only change Africa, it will redefine the world. Africa is not waiting for permission to rise, she is waiting for her children to realize that she never fell. Her wealth is not just in minerals or land, it is in her people, those who stayed and those who are returned. Together they are the architects of a new dawn where pride replaces pain and purpose replaces confusion. When the diaspora and Africa stand together, they become a living testament to what humanity can achieve when it remembers that we are all connected. The heartbeat of Africa echoes across the globe, calling her children home not just to a place, but to a promise of unity, restoration, and the rebirth of destiny.